Even so, 2,000 agents remain here. We expect to hear what's next for immigration enforcement at 8 o'clock this morning. You can watch it live on our streaming service, CBS News Minnesota.
Number 2, Governor Walz set to announce a budget proposal for businesses impacted by Operation Metro Surge. Earlier this week, we told you the Latino Economic Development Center did a survey with 92 businesses in the Twin Cities. 32% said they are temporarily closed, 47% operating with limitations, things like adjusted hours and shorter staff. Governor Walz will make that announcement on his budget this morning at 9:45.
Number 3, investigators in Tucson, Arizona are following up on many of the thousands of tips that have come in during the desperate search for Nancy Guthrie. Yesterday, the FBI said it was conducting an extensive search of the nearby roadways that are near where the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie went missing. They're also working to get more information from black and white images from a surveillance camera. These ones right here outside of Guthrie's home. You can see they show a person wearing a face mask, gloves, a backpack, and what appears to be a gun holster.
Number 4, Team USA men's hockey plays its first game today. Afternoon contest taking on Latvia. 3 players are on the team play for the Minnesota Wild. That'd be Brock Faber, Matt Boldy, Quinn Hughes. Puck drop for that game is set for 2:10 this afternoon.
Warm one out there today.
40s, yeah, lower 40s today, and it's not even the warmest day coming up. You know, one would just been cool, you know, but we have like 3, 4, 5 days in the 40s and 50s, I think all the way until Tuesday. Wanted to show you that 7-day forecast again. On Saturday, we're going with the top 10 weather day. We'll discuss more at 7.
Sounds good. Joseph, thank you, and thank you for being here on WCCO Mornings. We keep going on CBS News Minnesota. See you on the stream.
This is WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, we are looking ahead to an update from Border Czar Tom Homan on Operation Metro Surge. It's expected to come up in just about an hour.
Plus, the demands from protesters calling on Target to take a stand against ICE, what they say is worth getting arrested over.
And the latest details in the search for Nancy Guthrie, how investigators are tracking down new clues.
Acceptable trade-off.
Speaking loudly does not make it true.
Your time has expired.
It just doesn't.
Your time has expired, Mr. Schwartz.
And the heated debate in Washington over fraud in Minnesota, why University of Minnesota professor at odds with Senator Ted Cruz. A lot to get to on this Thursday morning. We appreciate you for joining us on CBS News Minnesota. I'm AJ Hilton.
And I'm Heather Brown. Thanks for being on the stream with us. We want to get to the very latest on the ICE surge happening here in our state.
Because we're just an hour away from another update on the man in charge of operations here. Barrett Leone live at the Federal Whipple Building with what we know so far and what's anticipated for later this morning. Barrett?
Hey, good morning, AJ, Heather. Yeah, we don't know. We don't have a clear picture, rather, of when a complete withdrawal of federal authorities, immigration authorities, will happen here in Minnesota. But we do know that Border Czar Tom Homan is expected to give an update later this morning. And if history repeats itself, we could be hearing a significant update from him. This will be the 3rd time he'll speak following his taking charge of Operation Metro Surge here in Minnesota. Now, in his first address to the public, he promised to stay until, quote, the problem is gone, adding that CBP and ICE were working on a drawdown plan in Minnesota with support from the president. And it was just last week when Homan announced an immediate drawdown of 700 law enforcement personnel in the state. Even so, 2,000 agents remain here. Here's what Homan had to say about it last week.
This is efficient, requires only 1 or 2 officers to assume custody of a criminal alien target, rather than 8 or 10 officers going into the community and arresting that public safety threat. This frees up more officers to arrest or remove criminal aliens. More officers taking custody of criminal aliens directly from the jails means less officers on the street doing criminal operations. This is smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement.
Now, we do expect to hear more from Homan, the latest on the immigration ICE surge happening here in Minnesota at 8 o'clock this morning. You can watch it live here on WCCO, on TV, and on CBS News Minnesota.
As we said, we'll carry it live here. Barrett, thank you. Now, the very latest from the live desk, that's where Maria Lisignoli is. You are following a Senate committee hearing today.
That's right. This morning, we're following a special Senate committee hearing on Minnesota officials and their cooperation with federal agents here in the state. Minnesota House Republican floor leader Harry Niska will testify today in D.C. This hearing will examine federal, state, and local immigration enforcement efforts in Minnesota, also focusing on public safety and the safety of law enforcement officers. Other people scheduled to appear include House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minnesota Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell, along with officials with both Customs and Border Patrol and Homeland Security. Republican Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky serves as chairman of the committee, and that hearing is supposed to start in about an hour at 8 this morning.
All right, lots happening there this morning. Maria, thank you. And as a reminder, Maria has headlines and live updates each weekday morning right here on our 24/7 free streaming service, CBS News Minnesota.
Let's get back to that ICE surge, because according to Governor Tim Walz, the surge in Minnesota is expected to end sooner rather than later.
And new polling shows that most Minnesotans would welcome that change. When they were asked about the tactics used by federal officers, 66% of the people who were surveyed had said that they've gone too far. 10% said they haven't gone far enough. 23% said they've been about right. Now, anti-ICE protesters are once again calling on Target to take a stand.
Demonstrators with the group ICE Out Now Minnesota Coalition were spread across the Twin Cities last night. Crowds chanted, they sang, they held signs outside different Target stores. Organizers say about 20 people were arrested, cited, and released at the Target in Richfield. So the group's demands include Target should call for ICE to leave Minnesota and tell President Trump to, quote, shut down ICE. They want stores to exercise their Fourth Amendment rights and deny ICE access unless officers have signed judicial warrants. They say Target should train staff on dealing with ICE encounters. They're also calling on Target to lobby Congress to deny more ICE funding, and they call for federal agents to be held legally accountable for harm caused to civilians.
I don't think that getting arrested is something that everybody's looking forward to. But if to make a point is what it takes, then it's what it's going to take.
Stop collaborating with ICE, allowing them to stage in the parking lots. It's got to stop, so I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
That Target in Richfield is where agents were seen taking 2 employees to the ground before forcing them into an SUV. That was last month. According to a lawmaker familiar with those men, they're both U.S. citizens and were later released. Target has said it does not have a cooperative agreement with ICE or any other immigration enforcement agency.
Cameras caught an ICE arrest in Robbinsdale. You can take a listen here.
You ready for that? In my pocket.
Hear him asking if he has a social security card. He says, yes, I do, in my pocket. This was from Robbinsdale last night, an ICE arrest. Videos show that a man and another man were put in handcuffs before agents left the area. We have reached out to DHS for more information.
And we're working to get more details of what led up to a chaotic situation in St. Paul. Take a look at this video. It shows the aftermath of an ICE chase and several crashes along a busy street. Look at those cars. A witness told us he saw an unmarked car with police lights on chasing a red Prius. That's the red Prius right there on Western Avenue. Well, the Prius hit a gray sedan at Selby Avenue. Then it spun out of control, hit a minivan, and got stuck in a snowbank.
I was absolutely blown away that both of those drivers were able to step out of their vehicle.
He says the driver who wound up in the snowbank took off running. ICE agents caught him, called an ambulance. The Department of Homeland Security says the man is here illegally from Honduras and drove recklessly to try to escape. They say he hit an ICE vehicle with his car at some point, but we could not find any criminal record for that man in Minnesota.
A warning now from United Nations experts when it comes to the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Those experts say that their killings may have violated international human rights laws. In a lengthy statement that was released yesterday, the experts said under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which the U.S. is a party, the right to life is protected by law and may not be arbitrarily deprived. They said that any death at the hands of law enforcement must be promptly investigated. They also urged the investigation should conform with Minnesota protocol. Federal investigators have blocked state agents from accessing either of the cases. The experts also said that they are deeply concerned about senior officials calling the victims domestic terrorists before any investigation happened.
7 minutes past the 7 o'clock hour. Joseph Dames just taking a look outside right now, and it looks like we could get some glimpses of some sunshine.
Yeah, we should. I mean, we had the system down in Iowa that was throwing clouds in, and so those will be around kind of in the area through the morning hours. But I'm expecting sun, and I'm expecting sun as we head into the afternoon as well. And then we'll probably get to some clouds later tonight. Next weather tower, it is red. That means warmer temperatures today than yesterday by at least 5 degrees. We hit 37 at the airport yesterday. I have our temperature forecast at about 43 this afternoon. We start off at 30 coming out of our rooftop right now. A little windy at times, but nothing too intense, and that should be the case throughout the day today. There's really nothing that's going to encourage stronger winds as we go through the day, so I think we'll be fine there. 14 out the door in Hinckley. We have 19 for Brainerd, 14 for Bemidji, a little bit cooler up to the north. Grand Marais tapping into some cold air. It's 4 below right there, and Hayward at 2. But the rest of the state and into Wisconsin seems to be pretty warm. 90 for Eau Claire and Rochester at 28. You can see that system down south there was bringing in some moisture for Iowa, but we avoided it. And it was our only chance this week to actually get a little bit of moisture, and it stayed south of us. So it's not going to happen now. 27 for Mound and 28 out the door as we zoom in closer to home. We're going to go with 43 for the forecast high today. I mentioned we'll have some sun as we go into the afternoon, but we'll also have some clouds developing later tonight. Highs well above average. The average high now is 27 degrees. That's over 30 years. And we're at 43. And that's not even the warmest temperature coming up, all right? 41 for Elk River with the high temperature today. We've been running on a beautiful stretch of nice warm days. We are running above average for the month by about 5.7 degrees there. And we will keep that going this weekend under a mild forecast and dry conditions. I don't have any threat for moisture in the forecast until this. Late Tuesday into Wednesday, where we have a pretty good shot right now for something to move on in. Will be rain, will be snow. We'll discuss that coming up at 7:30.
All righty, Joseph, thanks. Take a look now at your next drive. Well, no rain or snow right now, so roads are looking really good. Lots of green here at 710. Do have one crash, though. This is pretty minor, so it's not causing any major impacts over in Minneapolis. This is 94. It's going eastbound, so it's headed towards St. Paul. But you can see it's over to the side of the road, so not causing any major slowdowns. Otherwise, things should be pretty smooth out there.
Want to get you caught up on the continued search for Nancy Guthrie. Local police say they've received 18,000 calls since the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie disappeared. The search to find the 84-year-old Nancy is intensifying as investigators searched roads by foot yesterday. You see that video there. New York Post reports authorities found a black glove near the crime scene, similar to the one worn by the masked individual shown in security cameras seen here. A neighbor of Guthrie says authorities questioned her about her home surveillance cameras.
They did ask specifically for the 31st of January and the morning of the 1st of February. And then they wanted to know if we saw anything suspicious on our cameras.
TMZ says it received another unverified ransom note just yesterday related to the case, though this time the sender is someone claiming to offer information on an alleged kidnapper.
Your state lawmakers are preparing to get back to work at the Capitol. The 2026 legislative session starts on Tuesday.
No doubt things will look different in the wake of the lawmaker shootings last summer. There are new weapons screenings at the Capitol entrances. Legislature will take time on day one to honor their colleague, former House Speaker Melissa Hortman, who was killed in those attacks. As for what this session holds when it comes to policy, Democrats will be stunted without some bipartisan support. After a 2-year trifecta for Democrats, dynamics shifted last year with the tied House. The current 2-year budget that's already been enacted, but Democrats worry federal funding cuts could force more tough decisions as the state is already dealing with a looming budget deficit in the future. In Washington, D.C., a hearing on fraud in Minnesota took a heated turn. This was between a University of Minnesota professor and a Republican senator.
And if it robs the American taxpayers and endangers our security, for our Democrat colleagues, that is a perfectly acceptable trade-off.
Speaking loudly does not make it true.
Your time has expired.
It just doesn't.
Your time has expired, Mr. Schwartz.
So Professor Eric Schwartz, that's him right there, arguing with Senator Ted Cruz of Texas on the topic of Minnesota's Somali population. Schwartz told WCCO that Cruz kept cutting him off when he tried to show that Somali Americans are not the burden on taxpayers that Senator Cruz made them out to be.
Statistics about recent arrivals using high percentages of welfare benefits, those statistics are not unusual. But what we find is that over time, those communities get off welfare, and their children and their children's children, as we are seeing, become doctors, nurses, lawyers, professors.
So Schwartz says that the fraud concerns are real, and it is true that dozens of Somali Americans have been convicted or charged in scandals like the Feeding Our Future case. But he emphasized that those represent a small percentage of the population, and overall, the story of Somali Americans in Minnesota is a positive one. Now, if you're interested in learning the facts about Medicaid fraud, Minnesota officials have launched a new website dedicated to fact-checking claims. You can find that on the state's Department of Human Services website.
The U.S. Senate is considering a bill to add strict voting requirements. Now, the House passed the Save America Act just yesterday. This bill would require proof of citizenship, things like a passport or birth certificate, to register to vote in federal elections. It would also require a photo ID to cast your ballot. Minnesota's Republican House members unanimously supported the bill. All Democrats voted against it. Minnesota election leader Steve Simon urged Congress to vote against the bill, saying it would, quote, effectively end online voter registration and drastically reduce the availability of mail-in voting.
New technology is saving lives on a dangerous stretch of road in Minnesota.
We're going to show you how this camera, or one camera along Highway 7, is cracking down on distracted drivers and helping keep people safe.
And big technology could cause some big trouble for a Minnesota community. Local governments are welcoming new data centers, but people there are pushing back.
Good news when it comes to your next drive. We were following this crash in Minneapolis on 94 eastbound as you're leaving downtown Minneapolis going towards St. Paul. It just cleared within the last 10 seconds, which is good news. So see that exclamation point on your screen? We can go ahead and take that off, which is good. That incident over in Little Canada, that is nothing that's going to slow you down either. So your traffic looks pretty good. You should not have any problems getting around on this Thursday morning. But make sure you keep it to CBS News Minnesota streaming right here. We'll keep you updated. Should anything change, we'll help you to steer clear. Well, speaking of traffic, there's some new traffic tech along a dangerous stretch of road. It's showing life-saving results. This camera right here, that's an AI camera, and it's catching distracted drivers by the hundreds. It's a problem the state and community members have been working for years along Highway 7. We've mapped it out here between St. Louis Park and St. Bonifacius. Jason Rantala shows us how this all works.
For the past year, this AI camera has captured images like these, people driving distracted, holding phones behind the wheel. In 2024, there were 5 fatalities on Highway 7 alone, one of the deadliest years on record. But since this camera has been up, there have been 0.
I knew it would have an impact. I knew that the work that we did would have an impact, but to the degree, I am very surprised, yes.
Sergeant Adam Moore with the South Lake Minnetonka Police Department heads the Highway 7 Safety Coalition. As the camera has been positioned along various spots on the highway, it's helped conduct 1,200 distracted driving stops. Before the camera, that number was just 300. In addition to 0 deaths, the number of serious injury crashes has been cut in half.
The numbers are great, and be able to say, yes, we made a difference. I'm proud of that. But really, just being able to say, I know that we saved lives out here by the work that we did.
Moore is hoping to receive a national grant next month so the camera can stay up. The technology doesn't come cheap. Moore says it costs roughly $15,000 a month to lease it.
So the question is, could these cameras show up along other dangerous roadways across the state? Moore says he's in talks with MnDOT and the State Patrol to do just that.
Moving forward, seeing how successful this program is, I really think that there will be some more interest here.
In Excelsior, Jason Rantala, WCCO News.
The Highway 7 Safety Coalition is also working with MnDOT to make safety improvements to the road. Those changes would not happen until the year 2029. Right now, some Minnesotans are pushing back on plans to bring a massive data center to Farmington. Tract is a Denver-based development company that wants to build a 2.5 million square foot complex to house servers that store data. That's about the size of Terminal 1 at MSP International Airport. Documents submitted to the city envision 12 buildings up to 80 feet tall, spread across more than 340 acres.
278 feet from my daughter's bedroom window. I'm going to have 5 to 10 years of unregulated light and noise. Those things alone, just the stress and anxiety on a 13-year-old girl, it's not needed.
Construction is enough for you to say, I'm out of here.
Yep. I don't even have to get to the data center being here.
Jeff Schlotler and other neighbors say their consent was legally required to move forward with the plan, but the city of Farmington approved it anyway. There's also a lawsuit claiming the large amount of water and electricity needed for the data center could drain critical resources. The city of Farmington would not comment because of ongoing litigation. Of course, we'll keep you updated, but there are more massive data centers proposed at nearly a dozen other sites in Minnesota. Watch that full report on our website, WCCO.com. Let's take it to northern Minnesota because a couple was looking for a career change, and you know what they did? They built a candy store. In Carlton, shoppers come to Sweetly Kismet to get a taste of the past and present, one of the largest candy stores in the entire state of Minnesota. Get this, they make their own fudge. They sell 1,200 different kinds of sweets. A lot of the candy is pop, and it's nostalgic. Things like Bubble Up, which was first made in 1919. They also sell Root Beer Lady's famous sugary soda right there. Our John Lauritsen went to check it all out, from the old to the odd.
We've got a lot of our weird ones, one of them being the pickle soda.
What is that? It tastes like pickles.
It tastes exactly like pickles. Yeah.
People buy it.
Just in time for Valentine's Day, the store has a special section in the back of their 1925 Model T right there, full of all kinds of holiday fun. For the delicious details, watch the full Finding Minnesota story on Sweet Kismet on our website, again, WCCO.com. And still to come this morning, real-time tracking of ice sightings. It's happening all across the state. How a group of volunteers is putting ice on the map, despite calls from federal officials to back down. And the search for a missing woman in Fargo taking a turn. What police are saying about her disappearance and how you can help.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm AJ Hilton. Joseph Dames will tag him with your next weather forecast in a second. I want to start with 50 Minnesotans who will be at our nation's capital for a press conference and rally this morning. That includes state lawmakers, parents, child care providers, union leaders, educators, and community leaders. They're all demanding their representatives and senators vote to get ICE out of Minnesota. They say ICE's relentless terror against communities nationwide has created chaos and fear, and lawmakers should vote no on funding them. But press conference and rally is scheduled to happen at 9 a.m. Your next drive looks very smooth. Outside of downtown Minneapolis, 394 at Worth Parkway, steady stream of traffic, no crashes to speak of. That's reflected on our traffic map. Nothing we're following. Thursday's off to a good start traffic-wise, off to a good start weather-wise too, Joseph.
Yeah, just a little bit below freezing this morning, but it's quiet outside, and we have a really great forecast coming through for our Thursday. Good morning to everyone over in St. Cloud. So it's 24 degrees right now, and those temperatures are probably going to warm about 20 more degrees this afternoon. Maybe not that much, but pretty close to it. Warmer down south, Worthington coming in at 36 degrees, but just some clouds kind of streaming on through the area. We'll go from 29 above freezing here shortly, and then we're going to continue to warm up as we go through the next few hours after that. We approach lunchtime today with temperatures in the mid-30s. You see our next weather tower is red. It's going to be a nice warm day. I'll break down your weekend forecast at 7:30 at CBS News Minnesota.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, Border Czar Tom Homan expected to talk about Operation Metro Surge in under an hour. We're taking a look at what has already happened since he arrived in Minnesota.
Plus, the announcement happening today from Governor Walz to help businesses struggling during the ice surge in the state.
A crowd-funded website keeping track of ice around Minnesota, why they say it's worth any risk they face.
Then a prayer camp set up at a controversial site, why they say it predates Operation Metro Surge.
Thanks for joining us. I'm AJ Hilton.
And I'm Heather Brown. Good to be with you on the stream. We are awaiting an update this morning on Operation Metro Surge. We do expect to learn the very latest from the Border Czar in just about 30 minutes from now.
And while we don't know what will be said, it was just last week that Border Czar Tom Homan announced a drawdown of 700 federal agents. Since his arrival to Minnesota late last month, he's vowed to stay until, quote, the problem was solved, adding that his goal is a complete withdrawal of federal authorities. Even with last week's move to pull 700 agents, 2,000 agents are still deployed here. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the withdrawal, quote, a step in the right direction, but says Operation Metro Surge is not making Minnesota safer. He's demanding a faster and larger reduction of federal forces, as well as state-led investigations into the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Here's Homan last week.
My goal with the support of President Trump is to achieve a complete drawdown and end this surge as soon as we can. President Trump made a promise, and we have not directed otherwise. I heard rumors we have, untrue.
And we do expect to hear the latest from Homan on the ice surge in our state. That's at 8 o'clock this morning, so a little under half an hour from now. We will live stream that right here on CBS News Minnesota.
Also happening today, Governor Walz is set to announce a budget proposal for businesses impacted by Operation Metro Surge. Now, earlier this week, he did report that the Latino Economic Development Center did a survey with 92 businesses in the Twin Cities. 32% say that they are temporarily closed, and 47% are operating with limitations, things like adjusted hours and shorter staff. On Tuesday, the governor addressed this crisis.
Put a package of relief together, especially focused around businesses. Very much we had to do this during COVID. COVID was something that we couldn't control. This is an entirely man-made and avoidable catastrophe that's fell on these businesses. But I think it's still important for us to put something together to make sure that they get back on their feet.
Now, Governor Walz will make the announcement on his budget proposal that's set for 9:45 this morning. We will follow these updates. We'll share them with you right here on CBS News Minnesota.
Also happening today, 50 Minnesotans will be at the nation's capital for a press conference and rally.
So this includes state legislators, parents, child care providers, union leaders, educators, and community leaders. We do have a live look this morning outside of that Capitol in Washington, D.C. Now, the Minnesotans that'll be there, they'll hold their rally outside of the Senate. They are demanding that their representatives and senators vote to get ICE out of Minnesota. They say that ICE's relentless terror against communities nationwide has created fear and chaos, and that lawmakers should vote no on funding them. Now, among the people who will be there today, Minnesota State Senator Erin May Quaid and Representative Brad Tabke. The press conference and rally will happen at 9 this morning.
A confrontation between protesters on a pedestrian bridge in Richfield. Take a listen.
I don't care about you right now.
I'm just listening.
No, I really don't care about you right now.
A woman confronted people voicing opinions against ICE and eventually called the cops. This was over Highway 62 just before 4 p.m. Richfield police say they were called regarding a concern of signs and a flag affixed to the bridge structure. And after a cordial conversation, no enforcement action was taken. They said as long as the flag is being held and not affixed to the bridge, the protesters were within their rights. We caught up with the man who took the video.
There was 3 of the sweetest women you could ever imagine up there with signs, and someone had another opinion that came and gave their ideas.
After investigating, WCCO not able to find the name or reach the woman who confronted protesters.
Activists are now tracking ICE sightings and reporting them in a mainstream way. More than 100 ICE sightings reported across Minnesota just yesterday. Now, information available thanks to a group of volunteers who are mapping out those moments around the clock. Their site is called iceout.org. This is a crowd-funded website. It works to track federal activity across the state. Every dot is documented, time-stamped, and photographed encounters with federal agents. The project predates Operation Metro Surge. It was just launched over about a year ago. Federal officials have warned that ICE observers to stay out of their way. Just last week, they say some were arrested at gunpoint.
Has there ever been a moment for you where there's a fear that you could be a target, or the people working on the site could be a target, or the site could just be taken down?
Absolutely. That's something that we are constantly thinking about. Just because we have that concern doesn't mean that we are breaking a law. And it's very clear that we are not breaking a law.
So the site's founder says they hope to use a similar crowdsourced system to respond to natural disasters in the future. Faith leaders who were arrested during a protest at MSP last month are now sharing their story.
Our Adam Duxer sat down with 3 of them for his Interfaith podcast, Bigger Than Belief. You listened to part 1 last week, and in today's brand new episode, he shares the rest of what the 3 reverends had to say about that day. They discuss why they wanted to participate in the protest and how their faith led them there. The trio also shared their beliefs around being compassionate while also calling out what you don't think is right.
What's so clear to me in this particular moment in history, in this moment in the Twin Cities and elsewhere, but it's just like so intense here, is that I would say that there are sides, like in which side are we going to be on? Are we going to be on the side of compassion for our neighbor? Or are we going to not call out our complicity in how we perpetuate these systems of oppression? And it's like, this is the moment where, I mean, I think it's such a clarity in my mind that this is a moment of there are sides, and which side do we want to be on?
Today's episode is available now wherever you get your podcasts. You can also scan this QR code to find it. New episodes of Bigger Than Belief are available every Thursday. The federal Whipple building has been at the center of controversy since the beginning of Operation Metro Surge. We've seen protesters out there for weeks now, but some say that controversy had a long history even before this.
And now a prayer camp is set up there by Native activists. They say that they're praying for families impacted by ICE detentions, and they're calling attention to the site's painful history. This is a sacred site for the Dakota and other tribes. Plus, the Whipple building stands at a spot where the U.S. government killed hundreds of Dakota people and imprisoned more than 1,600 in the 1800s. We spoke with a Dakota descendant who says that the fear and family separation of ICE operations hits close to home.
It's horrible, not only on a conscious level for my neighbors, but on a personal level and what it does to my family and their perception of my safety.
Organizers say that the prayer camp is open to the public and operates on traditional Indigenous customs with decisions made by consensus. They say supporters have been dropping off firewood and other supplies daily.
Right now it's 7:38, checking in with next weather meteorologist Joseph Dames as far as our weather headlines are concerned on this Thursday.
Yeah, I want to show you what's going on as we come through the next few days and into the weekend. I mean, we have obviously some warmer temperatures coming up. Next weather tower is red, but we're really going to get warm. We're not just going to be about 5-10 degrees above average. I'm thinking more like 20 to 25 degrees above average as we approach the weekend. So our first headline here is that we have a stretch of 40s and 50s in the forecast. We start that today, and I don't think we really get back to something that's like 30s or cooler until probably late next week. So we have some time, at least 5-6 days. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast, Exhibit A here, but there will be some clouds too. Now the clouds that moved through last night, there's still some to the south. We're gonna get some moments of some blue sky, and then we'll see some more clouds later tonight. Potential records this weekend with that warm weather moving on through, and I have no moisture in the forecast until probably Tuesday night into Wednesday, which means you have a lot of time to do whatever you want to do outdoors, and you won't have to worry about any sort of rain or snow moving through. This was, at one point in time earlier this week, our best chance to see something to bring us some snow. And that system now got pushed to the south. It's really not that strong in the first place. It did bring in some clouds for us here early this morning, but it's pulling down to the southeast and it's gone. So our chance for any sort of moisture today is south of us and is no longer in the forecast, and we kind of figured that one out on Tuesday. Highs today up north, mid to upper 30s, some 40s there. Grand Forks coming in at 34 degrees. I hope you have a really nice Thursday. If you don't have an opportunity today to get outside and enjoy some of this weather, we really have the same forecast coming through tomorrow. So you could do it then, and if not then, the weekend is looking pretty good. In fact, top 10 weather moving on in. Why? Some of these 50s right here. That is going to find its place up towards the cities as early as Saturday. 42 though for Wabasha today, and if you're going over towards Red Wing, you're going to be about 43 degrees this afternoon. I mentioned tomorrow is just about the same forecast, but Saturday and Sunday is looking quite nice, upper 40s to lower 50s. That's Valentine's Day, but that's also now a top 10 weather day. We don't get a lot of those during the winter. We figured this would be a good time to do it. So we're going Saturday for a top 10 weather day. It's completely dry. Now, I do see signs of some changes in the weather pattern, and I think that is going to arrive late, mid to late week next week. So yes, there's going to be more moisture moving in, and yes, there's going to be some wet moments again, and yes, we're probably going to get back to winter. So for now, this is just a little bit of a reprieve from those type of conditions. Just plan on us going back the other direction. Don't buy in on spring just yet, but I'm certain you know that because it is Minnesota. All right, 48 degrees in our Sunday forecast, 51 in our early week forecast there next week, 47 degrees there on Tuesday. We have a lot of great things coming up, and hopefully you can find some time to enjoy this weather. Notice on Wednesday, it looks like it could be a wet day. Now, will we get snow? Will we just have rain? Still uncertain about that, but it does look like we'll probably flip that weather pattern somewhere right around Wednesday next week, Heather.
Joseph, thank you. Let's take a look now at your next drive. Starting to see a couple crashes pop up here in the metro as it does get busier throughout the morning. Let's take you on to over here. This is over in the St. Paul, the sort of Little Canada area. This is actually on 36. This is going westbound here, even though the camera says 35. So you can see it's a bit of a slowdown in that spot. Also want to take you over here to Bloomington. This is 494 westbound. Now, this crash just cleared within the past 2 minutes or so, but you can see a bit of a residual backup, 494 heading westbound. So just make your way as you get your way through the commute this morning.
New this morning, a search for a missing woman in Fargo is being treated as a murder investigation. Take a look at your screen right here. We got a picture. According to the Fargo Police Department, this woman, Isidore Wingle, she's been missing since December 31st, and police are treating this as a murder investigation. They have arrested a man for murder and tampering with evidence. But yesterday, police posted to social media asking for your help. This is what they're looking for, this potential missing evidence to this case. They say this could be anywhere in the area between Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo metro area, also Otter Tail County in Minnesota. So if you have any information, give police a call because they want to hear from you.
Talking about money with your partner, we know it can be a hard thing to do.
Certainly can. Coming up in your money, what experts recommend how you can navigate those conversations in a shaky economy.
And then in Health Watch, doctors are sharing insight into how building a positive self-esteem in our children. Figuring out finances, we know, can be tough for couples. So here are a few tips to make it just a little bit easier. Right now, many Americans we know heading into Valentine's Day weekend carrying record credit card debt. And in uncertain times, talking about money can be uncomfortable. Experts say honesty should start early in the relationship. For longtime couples, they say regular money check-ins are a must-do. You start with your budget basics and then eventually shared financial goals. So those conversations can help couples avoid misunderstandings about money decisions.
Just be open-minded and ask the person, how they arrived at how they are treating money and talking about money. And that can just help you both get on the same page. If there is an issue, like one person has credit card debt, it doesn't necessarily have to be a deal breaker. It might just be something that you want to talk through how it's handled and how you'll pay off the debt and avoid building up debt in the future.
A study by Bankrate found that baby boomers are more likely to say that they have in-depth knowledge of their partner's finances, as they are the most likely to completely combine their finances. In Health Watch this morning, no matter your age, we know self-love isn't always easy. And for kids who are still learning about the world and their place in it, and can be especially hard. Doctors say that factors influencing a child's self-worth include bullying, lack of choices, adults providing too much help, and comparisons can cause kids to be hard on themselves. So to foster self-love in children, they say parents can teach them to talk kindly to themselves, talk them through negative thoughts, and praise them when you notice that they've done something good. Parents should also model those behaviors as well. For older kids, social media can impact how they feel about themselves. It is important to limit exposure and talk with children about what they're seeing online.
What you're seeing on social media is not real. That's just the highlights. You're not seeing what that other child may be struggling with. Adults have a big role to play in building kids' self-esteem from the moment they're born, from the moment they're very little to their teenage years. Self-esteem is not something kids are just born with. It is something that we can build in them.
And the pediatrician there says having low self-esteem can lead to mental health issues like anxiety and depression. The Kids Mental Health Foundation says that if your child speaks negatively about themselves most days, can't follow the usual routine, loses interest in things, isolates themselves, or has thoughts of self-harm or suicide, they say seek professional help immediately. Let's take a look outside. You can see downtown Minneapolis there. Yeah, things are looking good. Let's check in with Joseph.
We're getting very close to the weekend. Happy Thursday to everybody. I have a nice mild day in the forecast today. A lot of sunshine. There's going to be some clouds around, especially in the morning. They may revisit us at times later today, but overall there's going to be some blue skies out there. Highs today, lower 40s, and it's going to feel like it maybe at times cutting down to about the mid-30s with the wind chill, but overall nice forecast. White Bear Lake, a high of 43. Belle Plaine, 47.
All righty, Joseph, thank you. Let's take a look now at your next drive. Had a couple crashes come up this morning. Things are starting to get busy here on this Thursday. Let's take you over to sort of Little Canada area. This is the camera at 35E. You can see it's a bit of a slowdown. That's because there's a crash on 36 westbound there. But otherwise, things looking pretty good out there. I consider this a pretty normal Thursday morning commute. Roads are dry and looking pretty good. And as always, we will continue to keep you up to date on the very latest news and weather developments all day here on the stream. Happening today, a night of raising awareness for women's health. I am honored to be over the MC tonight at the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women event. This is a night all about raising awareness about the threat of cardiovascular disease. It's going to be at Quincy Hall over in Northeast Minneapolis. Goes 5:30 to 8:30. Be cocktail hour, of course, dinner, silent, and live auctions. But most importantly, lots of inspiring stories from survivors. And get ready for an exciting evening full of mattress sledding, music, and more. It's called Hope on the Slopes. This is a community fundraiser. It starts tonight at 6. Watch for your teams of 4. They head on down Ski Gulls Tubing Hill. It's up in Nisswa on queen-sized mattresses. So you can have live music, food, drinks, raffles there. All the proceeds of this event will go towards Bridges of Hope. That's a nonprofit supporting Minnesota families. And if you are coming into downtown Minneapolis today, you are in for a treat. Adoptable pups will be ready for a snuggle. This is going to be a fun event. It's happening over at Meet Minneapolis Visitor Center. Goes from 11:30 to 1. Guests are invited to meet adoptable puppies from Healing Hearts Rescue. The event is free, but they do encourage a $5 donation. Adoption information for these pups will also be available. And then coming up on Mid Morning today at 9, Bachman takes us behind the scenes as they get ready for a very busy Valentine's Day. We'll be right back with more news headlines. It's coming up after a quick break.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Good Thursday morning, 7:56. Joseph will have your next weather forecast coming up in just a minute. But first, the man in charge of immigration enforcement here in Minnesota is set to give an update this morning, set to start in just a few minutes. In his first address to the public, the border czar there, Tom Homan, promised to stay until, quote, the problem is gone, adding that CPB and ICE were working on a drawdown plan in Minnesota with support from the president. It was just last week that Homan announced an immediate drawdown of 700 law enforcement personnel in the state. Even so, 2,000 agents remain. We do expect to hear what's next for immigration enforcement in Minnesota in just a few minutes. That's when Tom Homan is expected to speak at 8. You can watch it live on CBS News Minnesota. Let's take a look now at your next drive. Things looking really good on this Thursday morning. A couple of those busy spots getting a little busier, but no major crashes to report. Take you to one of those near Fridley right now. This is in the red on the map, but traffic moving along nicely. Joseph?
Hey, nice and sunny this morning as well. We've cleared out the clouds pretty quickly. Still some clouds maybe to the east, down to south, but we've noticed a lot of sun really taking over around the metro area and points to the west. So enjoy that. 28 come out the door there in Wilmer. We have a nice warm afternoon in the forecast. We should get back above freezing here shortly, and we're only going to get warmer as we head into the afternoon. 36 degrees there, just shy of noon. Here's your high temperature for the day. 43 in the cities, 50s to the southwest. Show your weekend forecast coming up at 8 a.m. See you then.
This is WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, could the end to Operation Metro Surge be in sight? We're looking ahead to new details from border czar Tom Homan. Then the demands from protesters calling on Target to take a stand against ICE, what they say is worth getting arrested over. Plus, high-tech help is changing how people drive on Highway 7, how an AI camera is stopping distracted drivers. And later, big tech could cause some big trouble for a Minnesota community. Local governments are welcoming new data centers, but people living there are pushing back. Good morning. Welcome to WCCO Mornings. We're live on our free streaming channel each weekday on CBS News Minnesota. I'm Maria Lisignoli. Thanks for joining us. Right now, we're standing by, awaiting on an update any minute now from Border Czar Tom Homan on Operation Metro Surge. And while we don't know what will be said, it was just last week Homan announced a drawdown of 700 federal agents. Since Homan's arrival to Minnesota late last month, he's vowed to stay until, quote, the problem was solved, adding that his goal is a complete withdrawal of federal authorities. Even with last week's move to pull 700 agents, 2,000 agents are still deployed here. Governor Tim Walz called the drawdown a step in the right direction, but says Operation Metro Surge is not making Minnesota safer. He's demanding a faster and larger reduction of federal forces, as well as state-led investigations into the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Here's what Homan said last week.
My goal with the support of President Trump is to achieve a complete drawdown and end this surge as soon as we can. President Trump made a promise, and we have not directed otherwise. I heard rumors we have, untrue.
We expect to hear the latest from Homan on the ICE surge in our state any moment now. We'll take it to you live right here on CBS News Minnesota as soon as it begins. This morning, we're following a special Senate committee hearing on Minnesota officials and their cooperation with federal agents in the state. Minnesota House Republican Floor Leader Harry Niska will soon testify today. This hearing will examine federal, state, and local immigration enforcement efforts in Minnesota, also focusing on public safety and the safety of law enforcement officers. Other people scheduled to appear include House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minnesota Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell, and officials with both Customs and Border Patrol and Homeland Security. Republican Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky serves as chairman of the committee, and that hearing began just minutes ago at 8. All right, we have breaking news now. Tom Homan, Border Czar, is now speaking in Minnesota about the Operation Metro Surge. We take you there live now. Good morning. We are breaking in now with breaking news. We are hearing from Border Czar Tom Homan talking about Operation Metro Surge. We take you there live now.
I'm here with Sam Molson, Director of ICE and Enforcement Mover Operations for the St. Paul Field Office. Stephen Schrank, Acting Special Agent in charge for ICE Homeland Security Investigations. And Chris Kuhn, Deputy Chief Patrol Agent for the United States Border Patrol. I'm very pleased to report that this surge operation and our work here with state and local officials to improve coordination and achieve mutual goals, as well as our efforts to address issues of concern here on the ground, have yielded the successful results came here for. The Twin Cities and Minnesota in general are and will continue to be much safer for the communities here because of what we have accomplished under President Trump's leadership. I previously shared with you before I got here. Before I even got here, I met with, I said I was going to meet with the governor, the AG, and the Mayor Fry, Mayor Herr, and I've done all of that. I've also met with various police chiefs and sheriffs. And one thing we all had in common was the importance of ensuring and maintaining public safety. Overall, we made a lot of progress through extensive engagement, meeting with them and other key stakeholders. And it is expected that those engagements and discussions will continue going forward in order to enhance exchange of information and more coordination. As a result of this surge operation, we have greatly reduced the number of targets for enforcement action. And many criminal aliens have been arrested and taken off the streets, including murderers, sex offenders, national security threats, gang members, and other violent criminals. Just this week, ICE arrested a criminal alien with criminal convictions for rape, acts with a child under 14 years of age with force, lewd and lascivious acts with a child under 14. ICE also arrested 2 criminal aliens with criminal sexual misconduct convictions, among other violent criminals. Through targeted enforcement operations based on reasonable suspicion and prioritizing safety and security, ICE will continue to identify, arrest, and remove illegal aliens that pose a risk to public safety, like we've done for years. And our officers will carry out their duties with professionalism, integrity, and compassion, like we've done for years. We will enforce the immigration law against all persons in the United States illegally. I want to say something about the various unfounded complaints I'm hearing about ICE enforcement operations. During the surge operation, ICE has not arrested anybody inside a hospital. We have not arrested anybody inside of a school, an elementary school. We have not arrested anybody inside a church. As a matter of fact, the only ones that disrespected the sanctuary of a church were the agitators that have been arrested and prosecuted, and so far we have 9 of them. However, those locations are not off the table. I said from day one, there's no sanctuary for a significant public safety threat or national security threat. But as far as those stories about ICE going into churches and arresting people in hospitals, it simply has not happened. And if you have a case where it happened, you let me know. Because all the digging I've done here, I can't find a single one. Under President Trump's direction, we have obtained an unprecedented level of coordination with law enforcement officials that is focused on promoting public safety across the entire state. While I don't agree with Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellis on everything, I appreciate the support the governor gives to state agencies who coordinate with us in a manner intended to promote public safety. And I appreciate the AG having an open dialogue with me. Early on, the first meeting I had, acknowledging that county jails may notify ICE of the release date of an inmate, just as long as they don't hold them past the time they would normally release them. We now have the ability to arrest criminal aliens in the safety and security of jails throughout the state at the time they're being released, like we've done in other states. I've also directed the strategic placement of officers in certain areas throughout the states that can respond quickly to sheriffs that want to release somebody and notify us. We need to be nearby so they don't hold them unnecessarily. So we worked on a strategic plan to reassign officers in those key locations. Arresting a public safety threat and the safety and security of a jail is safer for the alien, is safer for the officer, and safer for the community. I think we all can agree on that. It requires less resources for at-large operations. It just makes sense. I'll say it again, as I've said many times, we are not asking local law enforcement to act as immigration officers. I don't want them to be immigration officers. We're the immigration officers. We just want them to be cops. We're asking law enforcement to coordinate with other law enforcement to help keep public safety risks out of the communities. We have also strengthened our existing coordination with the state to target and take custody of criminal aliens more efficiently and effectively. As a result of our efforts here, Minnesota is now less of a sanctuary state for criminals. And we are proud of the public safety threats we have removed from the criminal aliens out of the state. As I said in my first press conference a couple weeks ago, President Trump didn't send me here because the operations were being run and conducted perfectly. I came here to identify issues and implement solutions to improve our mission execution. Since that time, in order to improve target enforcement operation, I and my team here, we made personnel changes. We integrated BP with the ICE teams. We established a single unified chain of command structure. We strengthened joint intelligence and targeting capabilities. We deployed body cameras. We increased the footprint of internal affairs. We commuted zero tolerance for misconduct. President Trump also deployed me here to work with state and local officials to de-escalate the intense, volatile reactions and conflicts that have unfolded on the streets here between federal law enforcement and unlawful agitators. While working to course correct and improve how enforcement operations are being run and executed here, and even before I was sent up here, I've been saying over and over that forcibly assaulting, resisting, opposing, impeding, intimidating, or interfering with a federal law enforcement officer is a crime in violation of USC 111. It's not okay and will not be tolerated. Zero tolerance if you cross that line and put hands on a nice officer. Not only is such activity unlawful, it is dangerous, and sadly we have seen tragic consequences, as well as adverse impacts on businesses and the communities here in the city. While the Trump administration supports everyone's First Amendment right to freedom of speech and assembly and to petition, it has to be done lawfully and peacefully. Because we will not tolerate unlawful actions committed by agitators who are just causing havoc. This is not the way to express your disagreement or try to reform federal laws. Go talk to your members of Congress if you want the laws changed in this country. Nor is doxing federal law enforcement personnel and their families, it's just not right. Enough is enough with this misguided, reckless, and shameful behavior. We don't want to see any more bloodshed. I don't want to see any more bloodshed. I pray every night for the safety of our law enforcement personnel and the safety of those in the community, whether you're here legally or illegally. I don't want to see anybody harmed. If you break the law, we're going to arrest you. We have already arrested more than 200 people for violations of USC 111. The U.S. Attorney's Office has already accepted many for prosecutions, and some are still pending. I have also received commitments from state and local law enforcement that they will respond if federal law enforcement is being impeded or assaulted. They will shut down unlawful agitator activity, including arresting agitators involved and seeing them follow through. And we're seeing them follow through on those commitments. We've seen this past weekend that the state and local law enforcement have taken actions when it comes to public safety. And bless them for doing that. Since I have been here, I've repeatedly emphasized that the unlawful and violent agitator activity is unacceptable and must wind down as a condition for further drawdown of law enforcement personnel. I cannot remove law enforcement personnel while violence poses serious risk to our officers. I will not leave my officers in that position. It is worth knowing that in all my meetings and discussions since I got here, I've not heard one federal, state, local law enforcement, or judicial official, nor any member of the business or faith communities that I met with, say that ICE is an illegitimate agency that doesn't have a real mission. Quite the opposite. All I've heard is the acknowledgement that federal immigration laws passed by Congress do exist, and ICE has a legitimate responsibility to enforce those laws. ICE is a legitimate federal law enforcement agency. We're not out scouring the streets to disappear people or deny people their civil rights or due process. In addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children, children that the last administration lost and weren't even looking for. That's because the leadership of President Trump, these children were located. As part of the de-escalation efforts, I have called on state and local officials these past few weeks to tone down the rhetoric and denounce unlawful activities being conducted by the agitators. We don't have to agree on everything, and we definitely do not. But we all agree that the lawlessness and chaos and disruption that is occurring on the street needs to end. I want to thank Governor Walz for his messages focusing on peace and his support for the Minnesota State Troopers to respond to unlawful situations that put federal officers and the public at risk. I also want to thank Mayor Fry for taking a public stance against agitators setting up barricades that block streets and endanger public safety, and for directing the police to take those roadblocks down. Additionally, I want to thank Police Chief O'Hara, Sheriff Witt, and various other local law enforcement for their responsiveness and efforts to maintain law and order in the streets. We've seen a big change here in the last couple of weeks, and it's all good changes. I'm also pleased to report that we're seeing a notable decrease on unlawful agitator activity here in Minneapolis and overall throughout the state. This is great news for Minnesota communities that have been adversely impacted by the lawlessness and chaos on the street. We have what we call here QRFs, Quick Response Force, security teams, that get called out when ICE officers are out doing operations. They get into trouble if agitators get out of control. If there's a danger and public safety is at risk, these QRFs respond to help these officers get off the X and get out of that situation. I asked today when I got here, I want to know what the QRFs call outs are, what their deployments are. I want to know every time a QRF is called out. The QRF deployments have dropped dramatically because we have less of that occurring, less of the agitator that cross that line. That is a good thing. That is a win for everybody, not just for the safety of law enforcement officers. It's a win for this community. With that, and success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation. Law enforcement officers drawing down from this surge operation will either return to their duty stations or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that. We will continue to enforce Title VIII immigration law throughout this nation. Prioritizing national security threats and public safety risks makes sense. But I'll continue to say over and over again, if you are here in the country legally, you're not exempt from our immigration laws. If we encounter you, we'll take appropriate enforcement action. For those that say we are backing down from immigration enforcement or the promise of mass deportations, you are simply wrong. Look at the data. Record number of arrests and deportations under President Trump's first year. And we'll continue that effort. Prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats doesn't mean we'll forget about everybody else. We will take action on everybody else. That's just a stone cold fact. A small footprint of personnel will remain for a period of time to close out and transition full command and control back to the field office, as well as to ensure agitator activity continues to decline, and that state and local law enforcement continue to respond to ensure officer and community safety. Additionally, federal government personnel assigned to conduct criminal investigation into the agitators, as well as the personnel assigned here for the fraud investigations, will remain in place until their work is done. I will also remain on the ground for a little longer to oversee the drawdown of this operation and ensure its success. In closing, I want to thank the leadership and senior management that I've worked with for your efforts into these issues, determine deficiencies and challenges, present solutions, and implement improvements that will benefit how operations are run and executed nationwide. God bless the men and women of ICE, men and women of the Border Patrol. Appreciate everything you've done for us. Also, with sincere gratitude, President Trump and I want to thank the men and women of ICE and CBP and partner agencies who have been assigned here during Operation Metro Surge. You achieved a great success for the Minnesota communities. Thank you to your families as well, because I know they sacrifice also. Thank you, President Trump, for your vision, as well as your support and confidence in these brave, dedicated patriots that work hard to deliver on your strong commitment to law and order, public safety, prosperity for American communities. Today, we have the most secure border in American history. We are seeing record numbers of people being arrested and deported. Your promise to make America safe again is being played out every day on the streets of this country. I've said it many times. I worked for 6 different presidents, 10 different administrations. No one has done it better than President Trump. God bless this great country. I'll take questions now.
We'll take a couple questions, no follow-ups. I'll start off with Frankie.
Yeah. Mr. Homan, as immigration enforcement continues across the country here in Minnesota as well, how do you hope to gain the trust of individuals here that have kind of been wary of seeing federal officers on the street, but let's say 6 months from now, we still have the office here, we still are enforcing immigration across the country. What do you hope things to look like, and what are you asking for the public?
Look, I just want people to look at the data on what this administration has done. You know, the number of public safety threats we removed from the streets across this country that makes these communities safer. ICE has had an office here for decades. Before it was called INS, Immigration Naturalization Service. This footprint will remain here, and they'll continue to do immigration enforcement here. But as President Trump has said from day one, we're going to prioritize the public safety threats. Again, but prioritization doesn't mean forget about everybody else. That means you have a criminal alien here and non-criminal here. The criminal always comes first because he's the biggest threat to the communities. We're going to continue to force immigration law, but we won't get back to the footprint here, the normal footprint here. But there will be some security teams staying here, the QRFs, until we're assured that those agitators incidents either stay low or further decline. I'm not going to remove everybody out of the safety of our officers, but like I said, and Operation Metro Surge is ending. And in the next week, we're going to deploy the officers here on detail back to their home stations or other areas of the country that are needed. But we're going to continue to enforce immigration law. That's what the American people voted for. But it has to be a priority of criminals. And look, I hear all the hate about, you know, you should arrest everybody. Oh, we are. But we're prioritizing those who are the biggest threat to our community. The rapists, the murderers, the child molesters. That's the right thing to do. But I'll say it again. President Trump made a promise of mass deportation, and that's what this country's going to get. But it's smart law enforcement to do target enforcement operations. Now, I've heard people attacking me using the word targeted. I sat for the last 2 months when I watched this operation, daily press briefs are talking about targeted Title VIII operations. Nothing changed, other than we're going to make sure they're targeted and make sure we know who we're going for, what their immigration record, what's their criminal history. That comes first. But enforcement of Title VIII is not going to end. If you're in this country legally, you're not off the table. And I think we're proving it if you look at the data.
Eric? Mr. Homan, just had a question about the final number of arrests you had and how many of those people arrested were those targeted security threats you were after?
I don't have that exact breakdown. I know we've made over 4,000 arrests here. That is something a local field office can supply. I don't have the exact breakdown. But I can tell you, since I've been on the ground, they've been target enforcement arrests. I believe there were target enforcement arrests before I got here. What I did is create one chain of commands where everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and integrate operation command centers. There were some issues here, and we addressed those issues. But I'm not going to sit here and say anybody did anything wrong, and that they were unprofessional. I'm going to say there's some issues here. We fixed those issues. We've had great success with this operation, and we're leaving Minnesota safer. The surge is leaving Minnesota safer, Minneapolis safer, because of the cooperation we got with the counties and the state and local law enforcement responding to our needs. I'll say it again. It's less of a sanctuary state for criminals.
Yeah, sorry to go a little off topic here, but can you confirm that CPD actually hit a party balloon instead of a drone with a laser during the incident in El Paso? And why wasn't that action coordinated with the FAA?
I have no information on that. It's out of my league.
So we're going to keep the questions to Minnesota topic. Go ahead.
Mr. Homan, can you specify how many county sheriffs, local jails have agreed to work with you and honor ICE detainers?
I have not met one county jail that says no to us. They want to work with us.
Okay, we have time for one more. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, Mr. Homan. You talked about this unprecedented level of cooperation between local officials and yourself. Can you explain more what is changed now in terms of that cooperation from before?
Several things have changed. First of all, when the agents were out doing operations and the agitators got a hand and posed a public safety threat, not just to the officers but the communities, law enforcement response has been sporadic at best. I think at what you see now, what you saw this past weekend, is law enforcement's responding to public safety needs quickly. And people were arrested for violating city ordinances as far as when unlawful assembly and so forth. They come to assist us to make sure our officers, the person we have in custody, leave that scene safely. You've seen it this weekend, and I'm happy that the local and state was there also, that responded, and we haven't seen any incidents of them not responding since we have these agreements in place now. As far as the jails, we got more cooperation and more jails than they had before we got here. And that's a good thing. We're having a conversation with the state. And, state already accepted our detainers, but we're moving further on our agreements for the state. So the cooperation we have here is going to keep this city safer. It's going to keep our agents safer. Arresting public safety threats in a jail just makes sense. If you look at, I was talking to my chief of staff this morning on the way over here, I see that most people on the other side, when I say the other side, I see this argument, Democrats versus Republicans, whatever. But most of the people, even Democrats, are saying they want public safety threats to be the focus. They think public safety threats, illegal aliens, should be addressed. But to say that and not let us into jail, you can't square that. I just noticed the governor of New York, my home state. I've heard her say that she believes public safety threat, illegal aliens should be the focus of ICE. But to have a press conference last week to lock us out of the jails and end 287G agreements, how do you square that? You can't. So again, prioritization of public safety threats don't mean forget about everybody else. We're going to force the immigration law. We're going to have a mass deportation. President Trump promised that, and we're committed to that. However, it shouldn't be a partisan issue that you arrest public safety threats in the safety and security of a jail. Releasing public safety threats back in the public is just stupid. And I've been arguing this for years. And I hope Congress takes action on sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. It makes sense. If you think about it, even the argument I hear, well, victims and witnesses of crime that are in the country illegally want to feel safe to come to law enforcement and to report those crimes without fearing that this law enforcement agency is working with ICE. That's a bunch of crap. Because victims and witnesses of crime don't want the bad guy released to the neighborhood either. It's ridiculous. We want access to the person that you chose, the local jurisdiction chose, to lock in a jail cell. And we have that cooperation here now. It's the right thing to do, and it makes this community safer. This community is safer because we arrested 4,000 illegal aliens, and it's over 4,000 illegal aliens here. Many of them public safety threat, not all of them. As I say, we're going to force immigration law, but this community is much safer because of President Trump's leadership and the men and women standing on the stage.
Thank you. That's all the questions we're going to take right now.
So you are listening to the border czar, Tom Homan, who just wrapped up a press conference, and he did conclude. He said during that press conference, I have proposed and President Trump has concurred that the surge operation conclude. Of course, talking about Operation Metro Surge that has been underway since the beginning of December.
He said there was a significant drawdown that is happening this week and more of a drawdown that will be happening next week in terms of the federal agents that are here, that they will now be redeployed to either their home base or to other spots in the United States.
He said the two biggest reasons for this conclusion of Operation Metro Surge are because of the cooperation with local and state officials, including jails, as well as the decrease in the number of what he calls violent agitators out on the streets.
Yeah, he said that Minnesota is now safer. That's what he said between the cooperation. He said he had a chance to speak with various leaders throughout the state. He said Minnesota is safer. He says Minnesota is less of a sanctuary state for criminals. That's the accusation that he made as well.
Right, and made it a point to say that now he feels as though there's an unprecedented level of coordination with the local officials, not only local officials that will work with the federal agents in terms of public safety or in terms of protests, but also in terms of the jails. We've talked a lot about these jails and access to the jails. He says he's getting a much more cooperation from many of these jails so that the ICE agents and the federal agents are able just to go directly to the jails and detain people from there.
One thing that he said that I think we all brought this up, this was something that was really interesting. He had this point as far as missing children were concerned. He said that ICE has located 3,364 missing children. So that's something we're going to follow up with as well, because he said that they've made more than 4,000 arrests right here in Minnesota as far as illegal activity is concerned here.
Well, he did say, though, that not all of the arrests necessarily were criminal illegal aliens. He did say there were definitely a number of criminal illegal alien arrests. However, not all of them were.
Right. I mean, he was specifically asked the question how many of these people had crimes in it other than just being here in the United States illegally. He said he didn't have those numbers right now. Now, we have heard of those numbers, and they are, you know, in the 10 to 20 to 30% of these 4,000 arrests that they have made. So that's another thing that we'll be following up on. But one thing I thought was really interesting here, and he used the term course correct, that let us know that, look, he had to come in here and really make some changes. He had to fix what was happening here. I think something that a lot of people would agree with there. He said he's made personnel changes. He's added body cameras. He's increased internal affairs. He has zero misconduct, zero tolerance, I said, for misconduct of these federal agents. And so he's laid out a lot of the changes that have been made since Homan took over from Bovino. If you remember, when was that? You have the timeline here.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he took over on January 26th. That's when Tom Homan came in and Bovino actually left the state of Minnesota. I think it's really important, too, because so much has happened in this time frame. We almost need to look back as far as where this operation started and how we got to this point.
We know the operation began on December 1st, and that's when Minnesota fraud cases and accusations that they really came into the national spotlight. January 5th was when the Trump administration sent 2,000 additional agents to the Twin Cities. 2 days later, an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good. On January 15th, an ICE officer shot a man in the leg during an alleged shovel attack. On January 24th, Border Patrol agents shot and killed Alex Preddy. 2 days later, we learned Border Czar Tom Homan took over the operation. Last Wednesday, Homan announced a drawdown of 700 federal agents, and now, as you just heard, the ICE surge, Operation Metro Surge, is ending here in Minnesota, though we do know that a small group of officers will be staying.
They'll stay here.
That's important, I think, to acknowledge, is that at one point we had more than 3,000 federal agents here in Minnesota. We've already started the drawdown here. So, but that doesn't mean that agents won't continue to stay in Minnesota. It'll just be, according to Homan, a much smaller level. He says he's going to strategically reassign officers to different parts of the state so they can be available to go to the jails when they know people are getting out of the jails too. So it doesn't mean that he says that we will stop this operation across the country, Operation Metro Surge, these 3,000, these 2,000, these 1,000 federal agents, that will come down. But it doesn't mean that immigration enforcement will not continue. Here in Minnesota and across the country, he made that very clear. The other thing he made very clear was his, he admonished once again what he calls agitators, many of the protesters out there, and says, well, zero tolerance for them if they interfere, if they cause any violence there. So every time we've heard him speak, he has made sure to make that a big point of what he's talking about.
And to your point, too, also trying to dispel some of the rumors that have been appearing on social media saying ICE has not come into the hospital, ICE has not come into the school, which is contradictory to some of the things that we have heard as well.
Some of the anecdotes that we've seen, over the past month or so here now.
Of course, we're going to continue our coverage as far as this big developing story is concerned. But again, the breaking news, Tom Homan saying that ICE operations will conclude, Operation Metro Surge will conclude here in Minnesota. We will continue our coverage after we take a quick commercial break.
You're watching WCCO Mornings, always streaming on CBS News Minnesota.
Next on WCCO Mornings, the announcement happening today from Governor Walz to help businesses struggling during the ice surge here in the state. And we know a crowd-funded website is keeping track of ice around Minnesota, why they say it's worth any risk they face. Plus, a prayer camp set at a controversial site, why they say it predates Operation Metro Surge. And later, a Minnesotan research went on a months-long journey to the ends of the earth. Just how old the samples of Antarctic ice he collected were and the purpose they serve. Good morning. Welcome to WCCO Mornings, streaming live on CBS News Minnesota. I'm Maria Lazignoli. Thanks for joining us. Happening today, Governor Tim Walz is set to announce a budget proposal for businesses impacted by Operation Metro Surge. Earlier this week, we reported the Latino Economic Development Center did a survey with 92 businesses in the Twin Cities. 32% say they are temporarily closed, and 47% are operating with limitations, things like adjusted hours and shorter staff. On Tuesday, Governor Walz addressed this crisis.
Put a package of relief together, especially focused around businesses. Very much we had to do this during COVID. COVID was something that we couldn't control. This is an entirely man-made and avoidable catastrophe that's fell on these businesses. But I think it's still important for us to put something together to make sure that they get back on their feet.
Governor Walz will make the announcement on his budget proposal this morning at 9:45. We'll follow those updates and share them with you at the live desk right here on CBS News Minnesota. Also happening today, 50 Minnesotans will be at the nation's capital for a press conference and a rally this morning. This includes state legislators, parents, child care providers, union leaders, educators, and community leaders. Those Minnesotans will hold their rally outside the Capitol in Washington, D.C. They're demanding their representatives and senators vote to get ICE out of Minnesota. They say ICE's relentless terror against communities nationwide has created chaos and fear, and lawmakers should vote no on funding them. Among the people who will be there today are Minnesota State Senator Erin May Quaid and Representative Brad Tabke. The press conference and rally will happen at 9 this morning. Activists are now tracking ICE sightings and reporting them in a mainstream way. More than 100 ICE sightings reported across Minnesota just yesterday. That information is available thanks to a group of volunteers mapping out those moments around the clock. Their site is called iceout.org. It's a crowd-funded website working to track federal activity across the state. Every dot is a documented, time-stamped, and photographed encounter with federal agents. The project predates Operation Metro Surge. It was launched just over a year ago. Federal officials have warned ICE observers to stay out of their way. Just last week, some were arrested at gunpoint.
Has there ever been a moment for you where there's a fear that you could be a target, or the people working on the site could be a target, or the site could just be taken down?
Absolutely. That's something that we are constantly thinking about. Just because we have that concern doesn't mean that we are breaking a law. And it's very clear that we are not breaking a law.
The site founder says they hope to use a similar crowdsourced system to respond to natural disasters in the future. The federal Whipple building has been the center of controversy since the beginning of Operation Metro Surge. We've seen protesters there for weeks now. Some say that controversy has a long history even before this. Now a prayer camp is set up there by Native activists. They say they're praying for families impacted by ICE detentions, and they're calling attention to the site's painful history. This is a sacred site for the Dakota and other tribes. Plus, the Whipple building stands at a spot where the U.S. government killed hundreds of Dakota people and imprisoned more than 1,600 in the 1800s. Now, we spoke to a Dakota descendant who says the fear and family separation of ICE operations hits close to home.
It's horrible, not only on a conscious level for my neighbors, but on a personal level and what it does to my family and their perception of my safety.
Organizers say the prayer camp is open to the public and operates on traditional Indigenous customs with decisions made by consensus. And they say supporters have been dropping off firewood and other supplies every single day. Here's a live look outside downtown Minneapolis. That is a lot of blue sky. I haven't seen that in a while. More and more sunshine is coming to us this week. Let's check in with next weather meteorologist Joseph James.
And we get it with warm temperatures, Maria. I mean, we're going to get sun, we're going to get the warmth, and today is when we really start to feel it. And then we have about 5 to 6 days of 40s and 50s in the forecast. So we're just going to put pause. We're going to press pause on winter for just a little bit. And then eventually we're going to probably get back to some of the colder temperatures and probably some more snow. But for now, we can enjoy a little taste of some spring weather coming through. I say that, by the way, with some real honesty to it, because our high temperatures are going to reflect early April by the time we head into Saturday. So it really will feel a little bit like spring out there. Plenty of sunshine, just a few clouds. Today, we'll have more clouds later in the day. For now, we have this beautiful, nice start to the day with some blue skies. I have potential for records this weekend. That's how warm it's going to be. And we stay dry until probably Wednesday or maybe even Tuesday night of next week. So we get a lot of dry time. We'll be doing some melting. The snowpack's going to take a direct hit to it because of the warm temperatures. And so that's going to happen. But I just want to remind people, we still average over 9 inches of snow in February. Will we get that this year? Maybe not. March, about 8.5 inches, somewhere right around that mark. So we still have a good opportunity to bring in more snow. This week, our only chance for that was this system right here. On Monday, it had snow up to the cities. By Tuesday, it was south, closer to I-90, and by the time we got into Tuesday night, Wednesday, the system was projected out to be right through Iowa, and that's where it ended up. So we avoided that. We get nice sunny day and nice warm temperatures this afternoon instead. Warm all the way up to the north as well. I mean, Grand Rapids at 38, International Falls Day just about 40, Ely coming in about 37 degrees. It gets warmer as we head south, of course. Not by much, though. You reach Isanti, it's in the 40s, lower 40s, so that's just a couple degrees. And I have us right around the mid-40s today, lower to mid-40s. 50s out west, down to the southwest, and if you're joining us to the bluffs of the Mississippi, it's always so beautiful over there. Temperatures today will be in the 40s. Okay, we do the same thing tomorrow. Then we warm up even more on Saturday. We've decided to go with a top 10 weather day for Valentine's Day. 50's kind of a special number for Valentine's Day because it would tie the record high on Saturday, which is kind of low, but it was set back in 1882. So it's been in place for quite some time, and I think we could do it, or at least tie it. And by Sunday, I think we're at 48, but the record on Sunday shoots all the way up to 63. We won't even be close to that. All right, let me show you what's going on early next week, because if for some reason we don't hit 50s on Saturday, we have a pretty good shot to do that on Monday, and you may even have the day off to enjoy some of that nice weather. So 51 degrees on Monday. I'm going with 47 on Tuesday. All right, the clouds start moving in. And then late Tuesday night, now we're starting to see a chance for some moisture, and I think that carries over into Wednesday. For now, Maria, I'm going to go with 38 degrees and rain in the forecast on Wednesday, but that could always change if those temperatures come down. Maybe we'll be tracking some snow. For now, though, just some cold winter showers.
Not a bad update. Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah.
Now to some national headlines. Fallout from the Epstein files continues. Attorney General Pam Bondi faced tough questions over her handling of the documents on Capitol Hill. Bondi refused to answer many of the questions that were asked of her, including the questions about President Trump's past with Epstein. And while Bondi did apologize to victims for what they went through, that's where the apologies stopped.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through?
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
At that congressional hearing, Attorney General Pam Bondi was also asked about why Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred to a low-security prison camp after she spoke with Bondi's deputy last year. Bondi said she didn't learn about that transfer until after it happened. Now, Maxwell's attorney is asking for a pardon from President Trump before she cooperates with investigations. In El Paso, Texas, what was supposed to be a 10-day airspace shutdown ended up only lasting about 8 hours. Planes are back flying in and out of El Paso's International Airport. The official explanation was a threat from Mexican cartel drones, which are said to have been neutralized. Sources tell CBS News the shutdown stemmed from a dispute between the FAA and the Pentagon over planned testing of high-energy laser systems intended to take down drones. The Department of Defense argued the testing was urgent. The airspace was closed without advance notice and left agencies and lawmakers scrambling for answers. The FAA and DOD are not directly commenting. In the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, a massive attack from Russian missiles hit various buildings overnight. There were hits on residential and non-residential buildings, according to the mayor. According to officials, no fire had broken out and there were no reported casualties. This comes as a Ukrainian skeleton athlete was banned this morning from competing in the Olympic Games over his helmet that honors athletes killed in the war. The decision came just over an hour before the man's skeleton race was set to begin. A University of Minnesota researcher is back home after a months-long journey to the end of the Earth. Adam Del Rosso caught up with him to learn about his adventures and the climate work he's doing in Antarctica.
Not a day goes by where I don't think about the experience.
Imagine waking up at a 10 in the vastness of an Antarctic glacier. Even during their summer, temperatures dropping as low as 45 below, with winds howling more than 50 miles an hour.
It's 24-hour sunlight, extreme cold, extreme winds.
Now home in St. Paul, Martin Fraga Silva endured 2 months of those extreme conditions. He's part of a National Science Foundation expedition called Coldex, or Center for Oldest Ice Exploration.
Our mission, it's kind of in the name, it's to find and analyze and study and learn from the world's oldest ice. And the oldest ice core samples we've collected are 6 million years old. And the main purpose is to understand Earth's climate history.
It's a snapshot of the past to help us better understand the present and future climate. Along with using ground radar to learn the ice depth and movement, they're also analyzing the gases that are trapped frozen in the bubbles below. In one case, more than 3.5 football fields deep.
It took a lot of work and a lot of time, but we did it. We collected 20,000 pounds of ice core samples this year, which are now making their way back home for analysis.
Once they make it to the U.S. by ship, the ice cores will be stored and sent to institutions across the country and world, where scientists will work on a number of projects to better understand the history of our planet.
And it's a great reminder of the incredible things that we can do when we get together to work on things that we're passionate about.
In St. Paul, Adam Del Rosso, WCCO News.
As always, we'll continue to keep you up to date on the latest news and weather developments all day here on The Stream. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after a quick break.